Hey guys, welcome to another video. This is really meant for folks who are generating some content or thinking about generating content and trying to make sure that they get the most bang for their buck with generating the content and coming up with the topics, etc. A lot of times you're dealing with many factors within your business. You may be starting out, or you might have a lot of success and you're busy, or you might be somewhere in between. And at the end of the day, the tendency is you just don't have enough time to do a lot of logistical and tactical details really at scale. And so, what I want to talk about today is a way to multiply your time and dramatically increase the output that you're going to get for your business and the value that you're going to bring to the market by multiplying your content efforts. Let's get into it. So this is pretty interesting. This outline is really a overview of what we've done to build anywhere from a multiple six-figure business within a few months to a seven-figure business within 12 to 18 months to literally eight-figure businesses within a few years. And really the baseline here that you're going to see is that we're multiplying our efforts. We're looking for ways that we can take what we have as far as experience and knowledge and deliver more value to the market than anyone else out there, and do it in a way that is very intelligent by essentially magnifying each expenditure or investment of time. So let's get into what exactly we're talking about here. So really the bottom line is whenever you're generating content and you're focusing on organic ways of presenting your business into the market, you've got to make sure that you're getting the information into all the various different channels organically that you can, and that you're taking advantage of it from a paid and retargeting perspective, as well as a community and some of the other channels that you can take advantage of. And so you want to get into a model where your content is going through this workflow that allows you to build up to things like books or resource guides, things like that, newsletters. It allows you to generate content from the very get-go that's going to be immediately potent from a blog post perspective, YouTube, podcast, these kind of things that are very transactional, possibly emails, etc. And then get yourself into a position where you can kind of create this ongoing, long-term, very valuable collateral that you can offer to folks for free whenever you're doing advertising and follow-up. This is something that you can give to gain a lot of credibility and really kind of allow people to then pay for it by providing you with their email or their contact information or setting up a next step. Okay. So to kind of dive into the weeds, the first thing that you've got to do is figure out where your value is within your space. What specifically is it that is particularly unique or valuable that you're bringing to the market? How can you present this in a way that's going to be useful for your particular audience? Now, this may seem kind of basic and simple, but if you don't have this step and you don't really get into it and spend some time working on it, you're really not going to be that passionate and excited about producing this content. So you want to give yourself time to think about what are the high payoff areas that I can bring to this market that I can get excited about. That's going to come across in your voice and your tone whenever you're preparing this content and whenever you're actually producing it. Now, at the end of the day, probably the most important things that you're going to do in this process are selecting the topics and then providing the kind of core information, kind of the principles or the framework of the content itself. Once you're at scale, you don't necessarily need to do all of the tactical steps that I'm going to walk through. You really only need to provide this kind of experiential based principles and choosing and prioritizing what the keywords are and what the main focus areas are going to be. However, if you're getting started or you're working to scale up and all hands are on deck and you are going to be in the weeds, we basically recommend that you follow this process where you're going to be not only choosing long tail topics, but you're also going to then be creating core content and focusing on the customer value. Probably the easiest way to create content, and for a lot of folks, this is kind of a mental block, is just to throw ideas on a piece of paper. You can just get a piece of notebook paper and jot ideas down. You can get a note, it can be a note application. It can be a web application for putting to-dos. I mean, it doesn't matter where you do it. Just jot some notes down. Kind of let yourself dump your thoughts into a piece of paper. A lot of folks like to use mind maps. It really doesn't matter. The main thing is that you get your information when you think about this area of value that you can provide information on, and everyone has it for their area of focus. Whatever niche or kind of categories that you're owning and that you're specifically focusing on, what are the areas of value? Once you are focused on one of those areas of value that you can deliver, what exactly is it that is so interesting and useful? Think about putting yourself in the shoes of the customer. Your potential customer is looking for how they can solve this problem. What is it that you can do if you were their best friend or if you were a family member? What would you say to them to help them be very successful with their project or with their task or with their product selection? What would you say? And what are some tips you would give them on executing successfully, regardless of whether they work with you or not? How can you provide value to them with this topical area? Now, once you get these bullets put on paper or notes or some form, and you kind of have the bullets out there, I typically recommend making a recording. It can be audio or video. Ideally, if you are to the point where you're going to be producing things like YouTube videos and other forms of video, you might as well just make a video. But you're going to go ahead and record it, use your bullets, and then basically rinse and repeat until you get this equation really locked in. So you're actually going to take your recording that you produce, whether it's audio or video, and listen to it. The beautiful thing is you can listen at 2x. You can then refine your notes. And then once you continue to refine your notes, then you can rinse and repeat and go through the cycle over and over and over. As you do this more and more, you may not actually ever have to repeat things, at least not very often, kind of once you get into the rhythm and into the flow of what works and what you need to do. Now, the first few, you might have to rinse and repeat 20 times to get yourself going. Go through the effort, get yourself into the process. And once you do, you're going to be comfortable, and you can ultimately typically expect to repeat something at least once to really get it to a high caliber and a concise but complete delivery. So now once you've produced your content and you've gone through possibly several iterations to do that, and you think that it's of a high quality and a standard that folks are going to really benefit from, then what you want to do is think about the different mediums and the different formats that you want to produce it to. Here I'm showing a few examples. The idea is that this is really where you can get your leverage. It's basically taking this really valuable area, and now you're going to go ahead and produce it to multiple different channels. Now, this may sound really simple, but the steps required to produce this to various different channels can be quite detailed to fully optimize it. One of the things that we want you to get out of our masterclass at TechLaunch is a very prescriptive set of steps for each of these different areas of producing content, producing ads, etc. So we have this information available to you in our masterclass program. If you're interested, take a look at the TechLaunch site. It's www.gotechlaunch.com. And anyway, the point is, this is a complimentary course, doesn't cost anything. You can go take a look, download it for free, and access it. Ultimately, what we want you to take away though is, regardless of whether or not you use our masterclass, each of these areas has a specific set of steps you can complete so that you can take your original content and deliver value within each of these channels. Now, although they're pretty unique, one of the really cool things that you can do is take your audio and transcribe it. If you haven't seen it before, there are some great tools that will do transcription for free that are built into like video editing software. For example, Adobe Premiere does a great job of this. Camtasia has an offering. There are several other offerings where you can literally transcribe your audio or video for free. This is really, really cool. Ultimately, you want to get your content from this audio format or video format and produce it into a written format as well. Then you're going to need to do some basic editing, and then you can publish this into not only video and audio formats, but also blog posts, emails, And then ultimately what we recommend is that you kind of go back to this step, just kind of look at your overall taxonomy and keyword structure and be building up with each one of these pieces of content that you produce. You want to be building up to where you're building incrementally with each piece of content you make a guide or a resource, an ability to deliver a really powerful webinar that maybe leverages 6 or 7 different recordings or videos that you produce, and you're compiling it into a single webinar. This is a great way to basically incrementally work your way into a very robust offering that can attract a lot of visitors and a lot of traffic. Now, the other thing that's really cool about this is once you get guides, webinars, best practices, then you can leverage these within your ads and your retargeting. Now you can start to see that this can really pile up and turn into something super valuable. But it all starts with kind of going back to this original thought of what is my big value that I can bring to the end customer that will really set me apart. And you've got to really understand that and then decompose that down into specific topics that you're going to build. And then make sure that each one of those, you're spending the time to go through and iterate enough that it's better than everyone else out there as far as the overall value they're going to get. Okay, now once you've done that, one of the other things that you can do is go into different communities, potentially make your own community, and promote this valuable content, which doesn't cost anything. I mean, you can charge for it if you want, but a great way to start is it doesn't cost anything and you simply provide value to different communities. Then as you really get a lot of content out there, you can even do things like producing an ebook, producing digital courses and resources that again can be either free or very low cost. And this is just kind of a gateway into your overall offering. So one of the things that we wanted to highlight here is that if you're making a set of content posts, maybe 2 a week, as we're describing here, it might take you 4 to 8 hours a week to produce these. And if you do a great job, you can produce these pieces of content, in 4 to 8 hours a week per piece of content. And it's going to be a very potent piece of content. Then you can publish that to somewhere between 5 to 10 different resource areas and get a lot of traffic and momentum going by consistently posting useful resources and content. But then over the period of about 12 months, if you are publishing 2 pieces per week, well, you can see that ends up being about 100 pieces in a year. With 100 pieces of content, now you have the ability to create a book. Now you have the ability to really create cohesive playlists in YouTube, for example. Now you can create a community in LinkedIn. The bottom line is it doesn't take a lot of effort all at once. It takes consistent small bits of effort. And probably one of the most key aspects of this is getting yourself to build a simple outline and allow yourself to get to that thought where you say, I can actually do this. I can do this one bit. Have you ever been in that situation where you've just got to get yourself to go to the gym? You just have to get yourself started cleaning up your desk. You just have to start listing out your to-dos, and then all of a sudden it just flows. That's what's going to happen if you allow yourself to get started and get organized. Stop waiting until something forces you to become who you know you can be. Step up now and take these incremental steps. It's these simple daily activities that are going to get you the results that you know that you were meant to achieve. Look, there are folks out there that are literally waiting for you personally to deliver this value so that they can progress with their careers. Now is the time. Life is short. Let's do this and let's get in there and make progress on producing this content. Now, once you've produced the content, the other big thing that a lot of folks don't necessarily feel comfortable with right away is being able to track and analyze what the results are and then push that into a feedback loop. The best thing that I can tell you here is that everyone who I've worked with in my over 15 years of doing this, they frankly just don't have time, and they always feel like, generally speaking, they didn't do a great job of running the analysis. So keep this in mind. No one's great at this that I've worked with, and it's always a challenge. Okay, I'm not saying that literally no one is great at it. But relatively speaking, most people feel overwhelmed by this and analytics and research and just kind of doing analysis of what the results are. So what do? Just do something. Pick what your key areas of analysis are going to be and keep it simple. Some of the biggest companies in the world have determined that their greatest success with analytics and producing a very successful feedback loop, they're based around picking 1, 2, or 3 key criteria and then actually measuring those. It's way better to measure a few criteria than none at all because you're constantly overwhelmed. Go with something simple and get it to work. Look at things like how many times are these pieces of content, these various different channels viewed, and maybe how many times do people click on something, and then what actions do they ultimately take from clicking. Those are 3 great pieces of information that you can then iterate on. And you can also look at things like dwell time and, where people move their mouse on the page. I mean, you can get really into the details, but maybe you want to just kind of keep it simple with analytics and research until you kind of get a cadence going and you really get a rhythm of producing the content consistently. I promise if you just take action, you're going to get better and better and better in the process. If you then give yourself a few simple areas of feedback, you're going to constantly be thinking about it, constantly comparing yourself to different competitors or industry leaders in the overall industry. And this is going to allow you to constantly improve. Give yourself something achievable and then get out there and do it. You can actually make this happen a lot easier than it might seem. And if you just take action, you will absolutely get results. Awesome. So to conclude this overview of 10xing your content, one of the things that you ultimately have to get yourself to is this idea of having an organized structure that allows you to kind of over time accumulate your content into a very powerful set of resources. You can think of it as eating an elephant one bite at a time. What are the big elephants for you? What are the big areas of value that you know that if you had unlimited time, you could actually deliver on? Let's start taking chunks of that week by week, day by day. How can you decompose your schedule and make the commitment that you're going to put in the 4 to 8 hours per piece of content to get it done? How are you going to get yourself to just build a simple outline? Just start there. Give yourself a commitment that every week, twice a week, or once a week, you're going to build an outline for 30 minutes. You're not going to do anything else. You're going to shut yourself off from the world for 30 minutes and build your outline. What I've found is once I build an outline for the content I'm going to produce, I get so excited about it that the rest of it just kind of happens. You should be excited about what you're doing and what you're producing, and then ultimately give yourself the time to put 2-3 hours into each piece of content so you can keep recording, keep iterating, and really refine the output that you're going to deliver to the community. And then the final kind of key aspect of this is make sure that you're not just producing in one channel or one medium. Go ahead and produce in multiple channels and get yourself into a cadence where you are providing this value. I mean, think about it. If you really believe that this is as valuable as it is, and you should, because it is valuable, you've taken the time to focus on a niche. You've taken the time to get good at this particular craft. And now you're going to provide a valuable surgery for someone who needs it. Medicine that someone has to have to survive in their business and in their livelihood. So go out there and beat the doors down, rattle the trees, shake the bushes, let everyone know that you've got this awesome information for them, and all they need to do is take a look at it. And by the way, if they want to, they can engage you by kind of going through these additional steps. What an awesome opportunity for you to get the word out there and make yourself known in your space. Life is short, so let's get after it. Okay, thanks guys for watching. If you want, take a look at the additional videos in this series. There's a playlist called the Masterclass. And if you want to get even more in-depth tactical detail, go to the gotechlaunchsite.com. If you would, hit the like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.